Okay, the recording has started. So welcome to the last session of today. I hope today's been a great day for you and your other sessions have been interesting. So you are in the workshop on designing an AI safety and ethics network. My name is Kyle Gracey. I work with an organization called Future Matters. We are a nonprofit strategy consultancy. We help other organizations who are trying to reduce AI risks to navigate things like political policy, communications, media, internal strategy planning, and navigate those challenging situations as they're trying to reduce AI risk and persuade other people and governments and companies about the need for this. But today's session will really be focused on the potential for creating more coordination and networking among AI organizations around the world. So the workshop agenda, these are rough times because we're already a little bit late getting started, but we'll make it up, I promise. First, I'm going to go through just a couple of slides to orient folks about about networks in general and some claims that I'm making about the AI community, the AI risk reduction community that this workshop will be based on. And then we'll have a very brief period of time for anybody who has questions. This is really just to give you a grounding in what network organizations are like, if you're not familiar with them already. If you are, apologies for anything that is repetitive. And then the majority of the time is going to be an interactive workshop where I'll be looking for your feedback and ideas about how to design an AI safety and ethics network well. We already have our ideas. We've gotten feedback from a number of other organizations in the field, but this is a chance for you to weigh in or to just think about this for the first time. So we'll have, most of the time will be an interactive board that we will be using. And for each of those sections, we're going to do 4 sections. And for each of those, we'll spend about 5 minutes sort of individually working on ideas or thinking about ideas. And then 5 minutes where you'll be able to see other people's ideas and you can build off of them or collaborate or talk about things as you work to put your ideas down. And so those 4 areas that we'll talk about will be desired features of an AI network, potential failure modes, how to both reduce those failure modes or avoid them, and how to otherwise maximize the impact of such a network. And then lastly, a space for other ideas or inputs that weren't covered in the first 3 sections of that. And then if we have time, we will have a very brief period of time for anybody who has comments or questions that they want to add that didn't get covered in your inputs earlier in the session. And then we will definitely be wrapping up right on time to allow you to get on with your day or evening as we conclude the 3rd day of the conference. So to begin with, I'm making a couple of claims that this workshop is based on. We do not have time to investigate or unpack these claims. These are just to give you some grounding on where we're coming from and how we're thinking about this. So claims 1 and 2, which are related. Number 1 is that the growing international community of AI safety and ethics organizations, and so we're thinking about organizations here rather than individuals. Those organizations face challenges coordinating across organizations. So this is not internal to one organization, it's across organizations. And some of the areas where they face coordination challenges are in things like communication strategy, advocacy, or running campaigns, policy development, and navigating political environments. So that could be both government, policy makers and decision makers in terms of politics in the broad sense of the word. It could mean actual political activities like candidates and their support or opposition for AI safety and ethics. And it could mean politics in a broader sense of, say, company or corporate politics. So that's one claim. The second related to that is that there's an especially significant divide in some cases between these so-called ethics and safety communities, and that this limits that this divide exists. And then claim 3 is that because of these differences, this reduced coordination means that their collective impact, the collective impact of all these organizations, is smaller than it otherwise would be if they were better able to reduce these coordination challenges. Not saying that they don't coordinate at all, just that they don't coordinate as well as their potential exists to coordinate and build collective power to influence things like the governments of the world, companies, and the public toward safer and more ethical AI. The fourth and fifth claims that are related are that a network organization, which I'll talk about more in a minute, is an important tool to improve coordination among community members. So again, community being the community of AI safety and ethics organizations. So I'll use that word community to refer to all of these organizations that are out there. At the same time, the other claim that's related is that some limited examples of network behavior already exist in this community, but they do not exist at the scale, both internationally, across countries, within regional groupings, or at the level of comprehensiveness that we are describing here. So not at the level of consistent and regular and powerful coordination on communications, advocacy, politics, policy, campaigns, that does not exist currently, even though some smaller elements of it do exist today. And then the last claim is that AI companies and AI accelerationists are already coordinating in ways that look to some degree like network behavior. And so there is an argument potentially to be made that this community is already behind. So to give you some brief background on networks and network organizations, again, apologies if you're familiar with some of this. This is just so we have a common language to talk about when we do our workshop. They're often composed, a network is composed of a number of different organizations. Those organizations have overlapping goals or long-term missions and plans, but not necessarily united. So they might have places where they agree or they could agree, but they may have other things that they pursue that are different and not related to each other, or they may have differences in the way that they perceive what should happen in the world with respect to their cause area, in this case, AI safety and ethics. And when we talk about mission, we're talking about things that they intend to pursue over longer periods of time, so years or decades. Many of them in many network organizations that exist today in other fields are nonprofit organizations. They do advocacy, they do policy, they do communications, but sometimes they also might be think tanks that are doing research or policy research. They might be philanthropic organizations or foundations. Occasionally, sometimes they're research universities or they're some element within a university. And then we also see similar network organizations in the corporate world, in the private sector. So a trade association is an example of a network-like organization. So these exist in lots of parts of civil society, but we're especially thinking here about sort of the larger base of nonprofit organizations. And then their structure is basically two primary things. One is the network organization itself, which is an independent organization that provides the coordination and facilitation expertise or services. It provides shared infrastructure to allow its members to coordinate. It has a knowledge repository, or it might have repositories of knowledge, especially confidential knowledge that its members can share with each other. And it provides capacity building for smaller or newer organizations who are coming into the network. And then the members themselves are the other important piece of this. So they are the organizations that belong to the network and that engage in the network activities. The other key thing is that these member organizations retain their independence. So they're not owned by or controlled by the network organization. They are affiliated with it and they choose to engage in activities that are coordinated among its members, but they also may engage in activities that are not coordinated among the members. And then lastly, they have different coordination mechanisms. So that might be like video conferences, regular meetings, strategy conferences and planning meetings in person, organizing around major national or global events, and shared digital infrastructure. And again, some of the things that they could do in their time is share information, especially confidential information, create shared short, medium, and long-term strategies and plans together, develop shared projects. So that would be like the coordination, communications activities, advocacy campaigns, policy priorities, shared research interests. And then again, they do that capacity building, especially for smaller organizations. So that's the basics of what a network organization can look like. Here is one example of a relatively successful, one of the most successful network organizations in a different cause area. So the Climate Action Network, and especially the Climate Action Network International, is as you can see in the red highlight here, a network of 1,900 civil society organizations in over 130 countries. So it is a very, very large network organization that works on climate change issues. And in fact, on the right-hand side, you can see it's actually a network of networks. So it actually has network organizations within individual countries or country groupings who are then part of this larger international network. So it's a multifaceted network. But there are also network organizations that exist in other fields, such as global health, global development, et cetera. So this is not a new phenomenon. It's just one that does not exist in this way in the AI safety and ethics field. So before we go to the start to work on the exercise, just curious if anybody has very, very, very brief questions. All right, looks like not. So then we are going to go over and go to an exercise in this Miro board. So I put the link in the chat. Everyone should be able to access this Miro board. I will also share it here, but ideally, because this is interactive, you should be able to go into it. So I'm sure some of you are very familiar with this tool Miro, so I won't explain it in detail, but basically it's a collaborative information sharing and collaboration tool. The way that it works is there are different areas that you can type into and put ideas into. So you can take these little sticky notes and you can put ideas into them. The way we're gonna work on this is we will start on the top left-hand side in the sort of greenish colored one. So on the top left where my cursor is, and then we will move to the right and then down to the next level and then to the right from there. So what we'll do for each of these sections is we'll take about 5 minutes where you can either just think about the question that's here or start to jot down ideas into these sticky notes. No one else will be able to see what you are writing for the first 5 minutes. It will be hidden. And then I will reveal them and we'll have another, and that's to give you time to think about things without being influenced by other people. And then I'll reveal the notes and you'll have another about 5 minutes approximately to be able to share those, to look at what other people have written. You can use these little stars. If you like what someone else has said, you can put a star next to it to indicate that you like it. Don't worry if they overlap, I'll count them out later. Or you can just write similar ideas or group ideas together. So you have edit access, so you can sort of move around this board, but do stay in the same exercise. Don't jump ahead of us as we go. So that's what we're gonna do. So the first question is, imagine that you work for an AI safety or ethics organization. Some of you maybe hopefully do, but even if you don't, just imagine that you do. What services would you most want a network to offer your organization as a member organization? What services would you want that network to be doing? What activities would you want that network to engage in? So I will start a timer, take about 5 minutes to begin, and just I'll lock the board itself so we don't accidentally move it. So take some time to start thinking about this. After about 5 minutes, I will expose the cards so that you can see what other people are writing. But start by thinking through this, but also as soon as you're ready to start writing, you can. And while you're working on this, if you have any questions, not necessarily in terms of the details of the prompt, but just questions that are preventing you from thinking through this, or that you're not clear about the exercise, feel free to ask them to me. But otherwise, any other ideas or comments you want to make should just go directly into the notes themselves. And yes, there's a request that I share my slides link, which I will do I'll share that in the Discord actually, so that everyone can see it after this session. And if you need more stars or sticky notes, you can just copy and paste to make additional ones. Okay, I've now exposed the writings so you can see what other people have written. So if you want to either build off of what other people have done or cluster things together that seem similar, or if you like somebody else's idea, you can put a star next to it, but also just feel free to keep working on your own ideas, putting your own ideas down. You don't have to focus on what other people have written if you don't want to, because we still have time. And there is also a comment feature, so you can click on someone's and on someone else's note. If you right click on it and you can add a comment as well. So that's another way that you can leave interaction with what other people have said. All right, we have just 1 minute left. So get in your last ideas, even if they're not fully formed. Don't worry, nobody's looking to see who wrote what. It's just a brainstorming session, or rate other people's ideas if you really like them, or leave comments, or just think if there's anything else that seems like it's not covered in what other people have shared here that you want to note down. All right, looks like our activity is mostly wrapped up. So we're going to move on to the next one. So I'm going to hide the notes again. Now, imagine on the right-hand side at the top, imagine that this network fails sometime between, when it gets started and the first, say, 5 years of its existence. So the Climate Action Network was started in about 1990. So it made it past our timeline. Other networks have failed in the past, but just imagine in general that this network of AI safety and ethics organizations around the world, this network does not work. Let's think about what ways, what the failure modes might be. Why might it not succeed? And that will be a preview into then thinking later about how we can avoid those failure modes. But let's think about what could happen that could cause it to not work. So same as before, first 5 minutes on your own thinking and writing when you're ready, and then we will be a little bit more collaborative. And yeah, for those of you who are on a mobile device, commenting is definitely one way that you can still interact with this. I know it's a little bit harder if you're on a mobile device to do some of the interactivity. But commenting on other people's is totally fine. Or just leaving a comment on one of the sticky notes is also a way you can do that. So thank you. Thank you to Claire for making that suggestion. right, I'm going to start to show what people have written. So now you can take some time to look at what other folks have written and comment on those, group them together, like things that you agree with, or just continue to work on your own. You'll have about 5 minutes left. All right, it looks like we are mostly done with this one, but if anyone still has ideas, feel free to keep putting them in. But we can do is move on to the next one, which is a little bit thicker of a set of questions. So now think about sort of from today where this kind of network doesn't exist. There's just elements of it that are out there in the world. Some groups are coordinating. Some examples of this are happening at smaller levels, but generally speaking, this network doesn't exist today. That's the whole point. So thinking about from today into, say, about a year from now, anywhere in that time period, what could people or organizations who are excited about some version of this do to make this network be as impactful as possible? And in particular, thinking about our failure modes from the previous section, what could we or organizations do? When I say we, I mean anybody who cares about this, about improving the capacity of AI safety and ethics organizations. What can we do to help this go well? What can we do to reduce failure modes, including those that we identified in the previous section? So I will start the timer and hide the current contributions, and feel free to start working and thinking. So we're in the bottom left now. we're running out of notes, so I'll make some more here. Lots of ideas for this one. Great.
I was actually having issue with my Mario app. I don't know. I use it normally before, but I don't know. My network was just kind of giving me problem.
Oh, so sorry. What issue are you having, or you've had?
I couldn't access my Mario. It was just saying connecting
Oh,
on this right. So
hmm.
I
I'm sorry.
I
I'm not.
could see the layout and stuff, but I could not access the
Okay.
exercise part. So I'm just looking.
Okay. I'm
But
not
I'm following
sure. I'll try to
everything.
trouble. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll try to
I
troubleshoot
think
that. I'm not sure how.
I think basically my okay, turn off private. I think it's
Okay.
just basically my network issue or something.
Oh,
But I
okay.
don't.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't. It doesn't seem like other folks are having that problem, but I. Sorry about that. If I can think of a way to help, I will. All right.
Oh,
I've made the notes visible to everyone now, so you can see what other people have written. Oops, I turned it back on. Let me turn it back off again. No, we're good. Okay. So you can look at what other people have written now. You can mark things that look that you agree with or think are important with the star. If you see things that seem similar, feel free to group them together. And you can also leave comments on these as well. So feel free to take some time here to do that. We have a few minutes left for this question and think about what else we can do to make this network go as well as possible and avoid those failure modes. Okay, so looks like we are pretty much wrapped up on this one. So we can move on to the next question. So this is more of an open question of thinking about anything that would be important for the success of this network, things to keep in mind, or aspects that you haven't been asked about earlier in anything around this network that you think are important to note. So anything that you think is worth saying here that hasn't been said already. Or also if there are questions that you have that maybe not short-term questions we can answer today, but questions that this network would need to answer in its design and development to be successful, things it might need to tackle, competition it might have, any other ideas that are important to comment on or think about when it comes to designing a network like this, or something like it. Anything else that is important here, feel free to start to put those down as well. And I'll just leave this one open since this will be more of a open brainstorming. And as you're working on this, feel free to revisit some of the previous 3 sections that might help spur some ideas or thoughts about what is missing or in the previous conversations, or any other ideas that people have shared that might inspire you to think of something that we haven't covered already. Take like 1 more minute here to collect some more inputs. Another 15 seconds. Any last comments or ideas in? You can also come back to this board later if you think of something that you want to add at another time. Feel free. I'll keep this this link active for a while for anyone who wants to contribute. All right, looks like we are mostly done. So I will stop the timer. But like I said, folks can contribute still. And I'll just change my screen share very briefly here to the other presentation. We'll switch to that. Just share my screen again. All right, so thank you for everybody who contributed to this. I know some folks had to leave, but it looks like we had a number of good suggestions from a number of different people. Here's my contact information if you have any questions or want to follow up on this workshop afterwards, or think of things, tomorrow that you want to add on designing a network, or have colleagues in other organizations that you want to refer who also you think would be a good person or people to provide input into this idea as we're building it. So feel free to reach out to me at my email address here. I will also be in the Discord throughout the rest of the conference, and I'm happy to talk there, and I'll be present for sessions tomorrow as well. Does anybody have any final closing questions or comments that they'd like to share beyond what you have already put into the Miro board?
So I have a quick kind of like general question. I guess currently, what are like your plans, then also Future Matters plans whenever it comes to kind of like what this would look like and what kind of needs to be done in terms of like, that can work.
Yeah, so we have, so our intention is to basically incubate this idea and then spin it out into its own network organization in the medium term. So we have funding to do that, and we think it's really important that no existing organization, including ourselves, owns it in the longer term. So in the initial phase, it's doing exactly what we're doing today, which is getting feedback from people, making sure that any network that is built is responsive to what organizations are looking for in terms of solving their coordination challenges. And so designing it around basically people's input, organizations' input. So, and then it will be piloting it with organizations that are interested in starting to work with us to build this. We'll build the infrastructure and the services, but the network will need member organizations. So that'll be the first two phases: is getting lots of input, making sure it's designed well around what people want, and then building a first iteration of it that is sensitive to those needs and testing it with an initial sort of cohort of members, the size of which will depend on how people vote with their feet of joining. And then if it's successful, then we will spin it out fully into its own organization, because we don't want to be controlling it either. And so then it will then operate and work to grow its membership and continue to offer and grow the services that are being that people have said are important, and to respond to the changing conditions and needs in the broader development of AI and the broader development of companies and other organizations that are out there and that continue to be started. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. I guess I'm just kind of curious, do you think there's any specific challenges or opportunities that would be specific to the AI safety, I guess interest groups compared to other existing organizations like this?
Yeah, I think probably the key things are obviously that there's a growing number of developments in kind of the policy field where governments around the world are starting to think about how they want to either regulate or put policies around AI, or don't want to in certain cases, or being influenced by other actors to not create policy or governance. And so all of those opportunities, which have grown tremendously in just the past few years and likely will continue to grow, those are, I think, the biggest opportunities, right? So last year we had the first AI Safety Summit globally, organized by the UK. We have two more coming up. The one in Seoul just finished. So there's these international things that are happening in the United States. There's a lot of both national government activity and even state level government activity thinking about AI policy, and there's people trying to influence both sides of those arguments and what happens or doesn't happen. That's also happening in other countries. And then a growing number of countries are starting to think about AI policy and starting to develop that nationally, or think about how they want to coordinate with other governments. So there's a big opportunity in all those places for a network like this to better help these organizations grow. And so that's one big thing that I think is a set of opportunities that's really interesting, and that sort of mirrors early stages of a lot of other cause areas. And then there is the fact that this ecosystem of organizations, if you will, is continuing to grow. We see more AI safety organizations developing every day. We see more ethics organizations or existing organizations that were not involved in AI starting to get into this field and bring their experiences from other fields. And then, of course, there's a growing ecosystem of companies, right, that are operating, that are developing AI applications or models or tools that are also continuing to be created. And so how will they play? What kind of influence do they want to have in matters of policy and governance around the world? So all of those are important places where a network could be building collective power for the ethics and safety organizations to tackle some of these problems even more impactfully than they are today. So I think those are some of the key developments. And as those organizations come into existence, what kind of capacity building and training could we give to them? Could this network give to them? And how could it sort of help them come into the community and scale up faster, because they come as soon as they exist, they have this whole network of organizations that are immediately willing to help them and work with them.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't really have any question actually.
Oh, yes.
No question from my hand yet. As is, someone asked for the link to the slides.
Yes.
You can get that.
I will. Yeah, I will make the slides. I'll post the slides in the Discord for everyone.
Okay, great. And also you made mention of AI summit or conference something. If you can add a bit of information on that on the Discord, that would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of that will be in the slides, and I think,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot of information. Basically, the idea is, you know, as these like international conferences are happening, that these organizations or this network could be active around those events. But yeah, I think so. There's a conference in Seoul that is just wrapping up in South Korea, and then in Paris they will be holding another AI. What was called an AI Safety Summit. Now they've taken the word safety out of it, but there'll be an AI conference in Paris in a while that will be bringing national governments together to talk about, you know, AI policies. And so that's another place where folks could be active. So I can certainly post some information about that conference that's going to be coming up. So yeah.
Thank you for that. I will be ending the call and stopping the recording now for other participants.
Sounds good. That sounds great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your help.